Are you struggling to find your ancestors that migrated out of an area? Are they always on the move? Well, you're in the right spot because today I'm going to be sharing with you 4 tips for tracking down that migrating ancestor. Hi, I'm Lisa Lisson with Are You My Cousin, where I strive to take the overwhelm out of your genealogy research. Okay, guys, let's get started. I wanted to talk today about the fact that sometimes it's really hard to find our ancestors when they migrated out of an area. To give you an example, I was working really hard to find a 4th great grandfather back in Halifax County, Virginia. I was in a courthouse digging deep into the records and had the opportunity to talk with a gentleman there who knew so much about the history of the area. And he said, Lisa, you can't find him. If you can't find your ancestor in this particular time period, look in Georgia. And I was like, Georgia? Why would I look in Georgia? I have no ancestors in Georgia. That my line never went down there. He goes, but there was the Georgia gold rush, which preceded the California gold rush. He said, and many of the men in this area, this was a time period of economic depression, and a lot of men went down there trying to strike it rich, to find their fortune. He said, and for every surname that you find here in Halifax County, Virginia, he said, you're going to find that surname down in Georgia. And sure enough, when I started looking into Georgia, guess where I found those ancestors? Down in Georgia. Now my guys decided, well, they didn't make it rich. They actually came back, thank goodness. And so I picked up the trail back in Halifax County. But it really drove home to me how much I had to understand the history of an area, as well as I had to really understand and get into the head of my ancestors themselves to understand where to find their records and where to actually look for them. So let's get started on 4 tips for how to find and locate those migrating ancestors, those ancestors who were on the move. Okay. Tip number 1, you want to create a very detailed timeline of your ancestor, where they are, when you know they're there. So I want it to be very, very detailed, guys. And I'm not talking just the census records, just the wills, just the probates. I want you to get so detailed that you can reconstruct their lives decade by decade, as we do in the census records. And then I want you to try to break it down year by year. Think tax records, guys. Look at the tax records. Year by year. I want you to try to get it to month by month, day by day. I want you to know that ancestor through his records in that last location you have him or her, that if they knocked on your door this afternoon, you would know immediately who they were. I know, now I'm exaggerating a bit, but really I'm not exaggerating much with this, guys. You need to understand them at that level in order to understand why they made the decision to leave and where they might have gone. Now, in that timeline, what I want you to really pay attention is you're plotting the data points for your ancestor. And a data point is each time you find a record. Count that as a data point. As I want you to really pay attention to who is mentioned in those records, who were they associating with, who were their neighbors. These folks are going to become important to your research as you go along. So that is the first thing you want to do, is to try and create that very, very detailed timeline for your ancestor. Okay, guys, number 2, look at those county histories. So perhaps you're researching ancestors and you know that they landed in Waverly County, Tennessee. And you're not really sure exactly where they came from. You're trying to track them back and to see where they came from. Well, what I would recommend you do is try to get hold of a county history for Waverly County, Tennessee, or neighboring counties, and read the county history well. Because when you do this, you're going to learn a lot about the community, and that's important to you as a researcher. Your ancestor was part of a community, therefore the community was important to him or her, therefore that community is important to you as the researcher. So when you read that, a lot of times what you're going to start to see is they will mention patterns of migration. So maybe people settled in that particular county came from a certain area of Virginia or came from a certain area of Pennsylvania, whatever you're researching. So read those county histories well. Find them at local libraries. I get them through interlibrary loan if I can't find a version online, or at my own local library. So read that county history well and see where the typical patterns were that people came from. Okay, number 3, guys, seek out local manuscript collections. What you're looking for in these might be memoirs that were written, letters. They could be even just local autobiographies of people that your ancestor associated with. To get an idea of perhaps where they came from, you might be able to kind of backdoor in on your ancestor. Now, when you're looking for trying to find memoirs or letters that might pertain to that area of your research, that location, check the historical societies, check the local libraries, check Archive Grid, particularly if you're doing this from afar. And if you're not familiar with Archive Grid and how to use it as a finding aid for manuscripts and other repositories, check out my blog post on that. I will have a link to that in the description below this video. It's a fantastic finding aid when you start to search for those types of records that might be smaller collections in repositories across the US. Definitely want to check that out, guys. So as you look at these manuscript collections, again, you can check the state archives as well. See what they might have in the personal papers. See what they might, if you're finding letters back to other relatives from where they came from. Maybe you're seeing references to previous business partners, those kinds of things, or those are the clues that you're trying to find. Number 4, do not ignore others of the same surname. So if you know that your ancestors settled in Waverly County, Tennessee, just to use that as an example, and you're not really sure where he or she came from, but there are other folks in the area with the same surname, okay, and you're really not sure or clear if they are related, or if they are, how they're related, that's okay. Don't ignore those folks with the same surname, because they very well could be collaterals. It could be an uncle, it could be a nephew, it could be, a second cousin, that kind of thing. So if you're stumped on your ancestor, research out those others with the same surname and see if you can track them back and pick up a clue or a lead that would connect them to your ancestor, and therefore kind of, I like to say, backdoor into where they migrated from. So there you have it, guys. We've got 4 tips for kind of tracking down those ancestors who were on the move. You're going to want to, number 1, create a detailed timeline. Emphasis on detailed timeline there. You're going to want to look up county histories and learn about the communities. You're going to want to seek out memoirs and letters and those types of more uncommon genealogy records that can be found out there. And 4th, do not ignore anyone with the same surname in that area. Okay, guys, there you have it. I'll put links in the description below so that you can refer to any of the other blog posts, such as one on timelines, one on the Archive Grid there. And before you go, I would love it if you would hit subscribe, the subscribe button down below, so that you don't miss any videos, new videos that come along that I post here on the Are You My Cousin YouTube channel. Okay, guys, have a great day. Bye.